Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bumper Radio. I am Dave Riccio, and Matt Allen is not with us today. He just didn't feel like coming in. So I brought in a couple of ASE technicians to help us help you with your car. We're here every Saturday from 11 to noon, right here on News Talk 92.3 KTAR. Here to help you with the car questions, car problems. Maybe you've got one of those counterfeit car airbags that we can talk about. Mostly your overall car repair experience. The best way we know how to do that is to educate you on your car. Today on the Bumper to Bumper Roadmap, a little bit of automotive fact or fiction. We're taking your car's fall car care month and 5 different mechanics, 4 different answers, 3 of them are right. So Joel Bartko from Arizona Imports is with us to help you with your car, and we've also got Glenn from Good Works Auto Repair. I hear this all the time. This guy told me this guy told me that. Why does that happen, Glenn?
Well, I think part of the issue, Dave, is that everyone has a different approach to looking at vehicles. Some people are more intuitive. I tend to be one of those that will look at a vehicle and kind of make an assessment from what I hear, see, feel, and my experience, as where others will grab a scan tool and start from a different end of the spectrum. But both can arrive at the same conclusion. It's just a matter of approach oftentimes.
Well, that's a good point. And the other thing there is experience. I was talking to Joel the other day, and Joel does a lot of Nissans, and he has a lot of Nissan background. And so when I call him with a Nissan question, he knows right where to go. He's got a lot of that experience, a lot of intuition as far as what to go. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about timing belt on a Nissan, and you had an experience just the other day, Joel. How did that go?
Yeah, well, I had somebody telling me that I explained to them they needed a timing belt in the car because it was rattling and the noise was coming through the distributor. And I said that the timing belt needed to be replaced because of mileage and because of time, and the rattle sound was that. And I don't think they totally believed what I had to say, so they took it to another place, and they said that it only needed a distributor. And I said, well, I tend to disagree through my experience of all the years. If they put a distributor in it and a timing belt, it would have fixed it, but I suggested the timing belt would have fixed everything for them.
So experience really plays in, and some guys have a ton of experience, and some guys are just starting out, and experience really makes, all the difference as far as when you got a guy working on a car. Now, a guy may not necessarily have a certain experience he's working on your car, but if he's a good guy and you got a good relationship with him, ultimately you're going to be happy with the repair. It's not going to be a matter. There's a good shop who maybe does offer you repair that doesn't fix a problem, isn't necessarily going to charge you for that repair. Now, some shops you got to maybe be on your guard, but for the most part, especially in the Bumper to Bumper network, you've got great shops. They're going to be real honest, real straightforward with you, and it's not going to be a lot of guessing. But experience certainly does play in to the whole equation.
Yeah, you get a lot of guys who come out of tech school and they think they know everything. And again, the approach of their instructor has a lot of bearing on how they approach their repairs as well. So if their coach or their teacher was one who was intuitive, then they're going to probably tend to be a little bit more intuitive. Or if their teacher or their instructor was more, grab the scan tool and break out every tool in the box and let's tear this thing down to bare bones, and that's going to be their approach.
My approach tends to be more of a systematic approach. I like to go down everything, hit every question, and then once I get to the end, then my intuition comes in, rather than, because a lot of times at the counter when I'm talking to the customer, I pretty much know I've got a good feel for what I think is going on. But even when we talk here on the radio and we're answering some of your questions, our intuition tells us maybe what's going on, but there still is some diagnostic work that has to be done, some steps you got to take. And I always use the example of you get into the airplane and you look to the left and there's the captain and he's going down a checklist. We never go to the captain and say, hey, don't worry about going down that checklist. You've done this how many times? Your gut tells you the plane's perfectly fine, and it probably is perfectly fine, but I would prefer him to go down that checklist. So I'm one for systematic approach as far as looking at cars.
Yeah, I think that probably is a better approach sometimes, especially when you're relating to the customer as to what you're going to be looking at on their vehicle. They will talk about symptoms at the counter, and the intuitive guy like myself, I've made the mistake of saying it's probably this, and so I've already planted a seed in their head that they think it's going to be this, and then if it turns out to be something else, and especially if it turns out to be more costly, now I've got a customer who is in a sense dissatisfied. I mean, they'll be satisfied that it fixed their vehicle, but they had a different idea in their head. So I've learned to really back away from trying to diagnose things at the counter or out in the parking lot And I know that certainly is my partner Nathan's approach to that, and it's been very good for me to learn that lesson sometimes the hard way, as where my intuitive skills sometimes will point me in a direction where there's more under than just the surface.
Well, you make a good point, because I think of going to the doctor and being diagnosed with a serious disease. He's not just going to hit you with that at the counter. He's going to say, let's do the MRI, let's do the blood work, let's get you on the scale, let's look at your heart rate. He's going to go gather all the facts, and then he's going to diagnose you. But it's a good point. A lot of times people will push us at the automotive counter and say, well, what do you think it is? And I get that they're anxious and they can't really, they want an answer right away. And I'm telling you, if you're a consumer and you're in an auto repair shop, that's not the way to go about it, because you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. Let them take the time to go check the car out and to properly diagnose it, and don't rush that. If they don't have an answer, don't push them for an answer. Let them do their homework, let them do the due diligence, and then come back to you with a diagnosis. So, what about you, Joel?
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy in my shop, I like to go with my gut, but then I want to back it up by diagnosing it the proper way. But I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is when it comes to my gut, and I think a lot of guys are, where if I know what's wrong, I'm not going to say it to you at the front counter. I'm going to prove it out first and then call you up with my analysis of what I think.
Well, probably the biggest point that I want to make is that some of your best money is spent on diagnostic work. You know, we may know, again, with like your gut, and you've been doing this long enough, Joel. How many years have you been in the automotive business?
About 35 years now.
35 years. Well, chances are you've got a pretty good gut, and you can trust that gut. But you as the consumer, you don't want the shop to guess. You want to. There's a diagnostic charge. You want to pay that diagnostic charge, because that's going to save you the most money, as not to spend money needlessly. One of the things we get into is noises. We always go for a ride with a customer before they leave the car. We want to hear the noise so that we can identify it, so that we don't fix the wrong noise. I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience. Multiple times, right? So we go for a ride with a customer, we hear the noise, and they say, well, what do you think that is? And we say, well, you know what, we're going to take a look at it. We're going to put our wireless chassis ears on the vehicle, and that's a bunch of wireless microphones that we clip underneath the vehicle in a bunch of different places. We put on a set of headphones, and then we listen to it. But there's more work that needs to happen rather than answer off the cuff. And the point there, Glenn, that you made is that you answer off the cuff, and then you call them later, and the answer is something different. Well, now they had an expectation. Now you got to redirect their expectation. So,
I also think, Dave, that there's sometimes that you just got to go and diagnose it the proper way, not just reading a code like at an auto parts store or something like that, where a seasoned technician has to read the code, that directs him to a certain spot, and then he takes his skills and diagnostic time to find what's really wrong with your car, rather than guessing with your money and your parts and being wrong, and then nobody's satisfied.
Well, for sure, you're going to set yourself up. Code diagnostic can be a real issue, and we talked about trouble codes here a couple weeks ago. And the other thing that I want to bring out is what I call Google Diagnostics. Glenn, your shop is right there at Price and Broadway.
Correct, yeah. We're half a block east of the freeway behind the veterinary clinic there on the north side.
And you guys have been there for 8 years now?
A little over 8 years, and we're expanding. We're going to add another 3,400 square feet onto our shop, and so we're excited about that.
Oh, that's really good. And then Joel at Arizona Import Specialist, they are right there. It's 3rd Street and basically McClintock.
Yeah, McClintock and 3rd Street.
And you guys have been there for how long?
Well, I've been running it for about 12 years now, but we've been in business for over 30 years.
Well, the thing that I like about both these shops is that Joel's sitting here. He's the owner. He's very active in the business. A lot of times you go by there, you'll find him with the scanner in his hands, or he's out there working with the technicians. So he's very hands-on, and same thing with Glenn's shop. That's very, very, very different versus maybe some of the chain outfits and that type of thing where they're owned by investors and the guy that is running the deal. Even sometimes it may be typical of a service department at a dealership, is that they never really talk to the technician. These guys are very hands-on, and we were talking about subjectivity when it comes to fixing your car. If there's subjectivity and you have a relationship and the guy is literally looking at your car, well, you guys can make a good decision together about how to repair the car. That is totally different. And there's a lot of shops in the bumper-to-bumper radio network that are hands-on. I think of Kurt's up at Kurt's Auto, or Greg up at ADS. I mean, that guy is very hands-on. He's in the shop. He knows what's going on. And the difference is that some shops are technician-run. In other words, a technician writes it up, and if the service writer ever questions him, the service writer's in big trouble. Not at these shops. These guys are hands-on, and they say, Mr. Technician, I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm looking out here for my customer. It's my name on the side of the building. And that's something very typical. So up for this segment, let's go with Dave in Phoenix on a 2006 Dodge. Looks like maybe a Sprinter. Go ahead, Dave. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet. Good morning.
Yes, I have a 2006 Dodge Ram 4x4 with that 5.9 Cummins diesel. And had a little trouble lately with the folks who are working with it, exactly diagnosing my noise problem. Tends to have quite a bit of rattle and, I guess you could call it pinging during acceleration. A little bit at idle, but mostly during a load and acceleration. A couple of people looked at it and they thought maybe diagnosed it and thought maybe injectors were the problem. It does have 134,000 miles. Well,
Yes.
I made the big leap of faith and had to replace them all. As you guys know, that's a very expensive endeavor. And it didn't really fix the problem.
Well, we were just joking before the show. We said, today is going to be diesel day because we don't have a diesel guy in the house. But what part of Phoenix are you in, Dave?
I'm in North Phoenix, kind of in the Paradise Valley Hospital area.
Okay. Go ahead, Joel. You had something?
I'm not a diesel expert at all, but I was just curious. You said it was pinging at idle also?
Well, the odd thing is, of course, intermittently. So it'll idle, and then every now and then you'll hear a fairly loud metallic knock, and then it'll go away. And it's very erratic and not a steady issue. But you can really hear it upon acceleration.
Well, I don't really have any advice here for you other than, we've got at I-17 in Bell Road, we've got Kurt's Auto Repair, and Kurt has been there for a number of years. Again, he's one of those owners that's hand-on. We were just mentioning them. They're a diesel shop, and they are a Bosch service center. So they handle things like injectors, all that stuff on a regular basis. So you might get it up to Kurt Rock, get his opinion on it, maybe give him some time with the vehicle, pay him for some diagnostic, and see what he thinks about it. So I sure appreciate the call, and I wish I had more information from you. The other thing you can do is follow me up with an email at bumpertobumperradio.com, and I will personally get you an email over to Kurt and get you guys connected. So thanks so much for the call, Dave. You guys got any more thoughts on that? You see you're staring at me like a deer in the headlights.
Well, I was just wondering maybe if he tried removing the belt or something like that to see if it wasn't a pulley making a noise, because when he said it idle, kind of pinging at idle doesn't sound that normal to me. I'd be wondering a belt or an idle pulley or a compressor or something like that, or even a transmission noise.
Right, not necessarily an engine noise. So noises are funny, and you got to try different things. And pulling a belt is a lot of times is a good idea. Not long enough where you're going to overheat the thing because the water pump is driven by the belt, but certainly rule out a lot of components. You got to think of what's spinning when the noise is being made.
Right, and he also failed to mention whether he had any power loss or anything as a result of when he hears the noise or anything like that. So that may be something that he needs to relate to Kurtz or wherever he ends up taking it for that service.
Well, thanks again for the call, Dave. Let's go with Sharon in Mesa on a 2003. Looks like a Honda Civic. Go ahead, Sharon. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, guys, thanks. This is the second time you're going to help me out with my mom's car. We had a recall on it, and we took it in, and they're telling me it's got like under 23,000 miles. It lives in a garage. My mom doesn't drive much. But they're saying due to time, I have to change the timing belt. And the vehicle runs great. So I don't know if that's
Right.
just because my mom was older.
Well,
They also told me I need to do radiator hoses and thermostat, but the service advisor said not right now.
Well, that's a great call, Sharon. We actually just had this conversation at breakfast. We were talking about timing belts and specifically Honda dealerships. So, Joel, you had quite a bit of input on this.
What year and mileage was the car again?
It was a
2003 Civic, and it's got 23,000 miles on it, and it lives in a garage. And she drives, I think, the furthest maybe 10 miles from the house.
Well, we usually recommend timing belts at around 90,000 miles, and most Hondas, they say 105 in the factory manual. The dealerships are quick to push them around 60,000, but time does play a factor in Arizona with our heat and drying out rubber.
Well, this thing sits in a garage. It goes on short drives, and right now, at this point, it's 9 years old. So how would you handle that?
I would probably say at the 10-year mark, I would replace that belt.
You would go ahead and replace the belt. So they're not off by recommending that to her.
Not, in my opinion, that far off.
Well, I thought it was interesting. She said it was back in there for a recall. And last week we talked about recalls, and I think we named about 5 or 7 recalls. And Toyota is now having a recall. It's actually 7 million vehicles that are affected. 2 million of them are in the U.S., and it's for a window switch on the driver's door, what they refer to as the master switch. And we've had this discussion in shows past. 2 million cars all of a sudden going into dealerships, and I wonder if these recalls are strategic by any means. And when I talked to the guy at the Toyota dealership, he said, Dave, by no means is it a strategic thing to have a recall. What do you guys think about that?
I know for myself, I dread when the customers send to the dealership for a recall. I always warn them first. It's a way for them to pitch sales on things that you may need or may not need, but be prepared because you're going to get a list of stuff because they're hungry. They want to sell you things that you may need or may not need. I would look carefully into the recommendations that were given to you.
Well, and that's not necessarily someone that you already have a relationship with. You may be going to someone like Joel at Arizona Imports or, Glenn from Goodworks Auto Repair. You've been going there, all of a sudden you are going to the dealer for a recall, so you don't have a relationship with these people and they have a bunch of recommendations for you. So that's one thing. Now, any of my customers that have a recall, I will actually take the vehicle to the dealer and run through those hoops for them. We've got Sam, Scott, and Trish. We've got a couple open lines at 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. And Jill mentioned the airbag, defective counterfeit airbags. Man. And I posted that at go to Bumper to Bumper Radio. There's a Facebook link. Click on that link. And there's a video there from the National Highway Traffic Safety Committee, NTH. I can never keep track of the acronym.
Administration, I think is.
But it's quite impressive, but it really shows you that it is a serious problem. And what's going on is that it's not a factory recall like from Toyota, but it's actually from an aftermarket parts manufacturer out of China where they used to make fireworks, and now they're making now they're making airbags, and these things are not deploying right. If you watch the video, I mean, it is really eye-opening. So this is new news just this week. I know
you can open your eyes right up.
Yes, take a look. Take a look at the video because it's not good. Now, if you have a vehicle that has never been in an accident and never had an airbag replacement, it's not something you need to worry about. But this is specifically vehicles repaired in the last 3 years after an accident where the airbags deployed. So if that's not you, don't worry about it. But I'm sure more information will come out in the weeks to come as far as which vehicles are really affected. But basically, and I think this really comes from the insurance companies really trying to drive down the price of airbags in order to repair these cars. And so the parts have gotten maybe cheaper. They found other vendors, but airbag is such a safety issue. And the other thing Joel brought up here just before we came back on is that you need to learn to do a bulb check. And what a bulb check is when you first come to the car and you turn the key forward and you don't necessarily start it, but all the lights in the dashboard should light up. That's a bulb check. And if you don't see an airbag light, that's something to be aware of because some of these used cars that people are flipping out there on Craigslist with an airbag issue, they're going ahead and just taking the bulb out. So go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, sometimes it'll actually say airbag, and sometimes there's a symbol of a passenger sitting in the seat with the airbag. It's like a bubble in front of them. So it may not say airbag, but there's a symbol that symbolizes that it is an airbag light. And it should come on for about 5-10 seconds. The system goes through a self-check, and then it turns back off again to let you know everything's okay.
Well, we're talking about that when people call, they say, my airbag's light on. Should I be scared? Is this thing going to blow up in my face? That's not really why that airbag's light's on. It's on to let you know there is a problem, and it's not a problem where you need to be worried that the thing's going to go off. It's just let you know that that safety item, somewhere there's a deficiency in the system. So let's go up first this segment to Scott, who's in Scottsdale on a 2006, looks like a Toyota Tacoma. Go ahead, Scott. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey guys, I only have 50,000 miles on my truck, and what I'm wondering, whenever I drive, like my RPMs are low, it starts sputtering, and it just doesn't, it's like it's not getting enough air or gas or something. I'm just curious if you know what that could possibly be.
How many miles did you say on your truck?
Just 50,000.
50,000 miles. Is there any check engine lights on?
No.
No check engine lights on, but it's sputtering. So when you give it gas, there's no power?
Right. When it's on the low RPMs, when it just starts gradually taking off, it just starts, sputtering. And I'm just like, I'm thinking, is that like a vacuum leak, or I heard the spark plugs are good until 100,000 miles.
Well, I'd like to see a check engine light would kind of guide us in a way, but someone should really drive it and feel if it's sputtering, shaking. It sounds like it could be a lot of different things, air, fuel mixtures, of course, but without a check engine light, you need a little more consistency to the problem. Does it only happen cold or hot or at low RPMs, you were saying?
Yeah, just at low RPMs. Yeah, cold, hot, whatever time. It's just whenever it's low, it sputters.
When you say it sputters, I keep thinking, like, does it lack power? Like, if you were to just tromp on it, would it get up and go, or is it?
Yeah, it will. It just seems like it's chugging, like it's not getting enough gas. But then, I was thinking that some kind of light would come on if there was something major or something, but I don't know.
Is that an automatic transmission or manual?
Yeah, automatic.
Yeah, I'm thinking, there's so many, when you describe that, there's so many different things that could be, but one of the things, if I'm worried about the engine necessarily sputtering, you might just, power brake it, where the vehicle's in drive, you get your foot firmly planted on the brake, and what I would want you to do would be to gradually bring up the RPMs of the engine, and just bring it up 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, and if the engine is really stumbling, you're going to start to feel it, even though you're sitting perfectly still. So,
one other thing is just, can you tell me, is your check engine light actually working? If it's not working, you may have a code in there, and it's, you can't even tell if there's a problem.
Right. Well, it's really, a check engine light would be the first thing we'd be looking for. And I've had people come in and complain about sputtering, and it was a fan clutch that was dragging real heavy, at lower RPM, that type of thing. So thanks so much for the call, Scott. If you're looking for a good shop, bumpertobumperradio.com. Let's go with Sam in Mesa on a 2000 Nissan Pickup. Go ahead, Sam. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yes, thank you. I've got a headlight or a light problem. I turn my headlights on, and all my dash lights go out about 15 seconds after I turn my headlights on.
Do they ever come back?
No, not until I turn the lights off and turn them back on. They'll come on for another 15 seconds and go back off.
Is there I'm thinking of the dashboard dimmer switch, where you can brighten up the dashboard lights or dim the dashboard lights?
I don't have one of those.
Where would that be on a 2000 Nissan, Joel?
On the dashboard next to there'd be a switch that you could roll, like an illumination switch. When you turn the parking lights on, do they work then? Are you talking about the illumination of the instrument cluster?
Yeah, all the dash lights, the radio light, everything goes out.
I would be looking at that illumination switch first, checking if you maybe have it turned down all the way by accident, since you didn't know where it is. Maybe you had the car cleaned and hit the switch. That'd be the first thing I'd be looking at.
But I would be thinking that first go to that thumb wheel, make sure that thing is. But the time, he said it takes 15 seconds and then it goes out. That makes me start to think we may have a switch problem. The actual switch itself is going bad. But that's the first thing that came to my mind was that thumb wheel and the brightness on the lights. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, all of that runs through the multi-function switch and so on. So there could be a problem there. There could be something that's getting overheated and taking out that part of the circuit, although your headlights will continue to run, so you probably need to have that checked out.
Well, thanks so much for the call, Sam. Let's go with Ted in Phoenix on a 2006 Hyundai Sonata. Go ahead, Ted. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Let me start by saying I'm mechanically challenged. So I think my 2006 Sonata has got 154,000 miles on it. And when I started, every time from a cold start, it starts up as like it was almost like a diesel, a rattling sound, and then it goes away after about 4 to 5 seconds. I read somewhere on some forum that it wasn't anything to be concerned about, but that hasn't helped.
Well, Ted, I need to start by saying that I'm mechanically challenged, too. That's why I brought in Joel and Glenn this morning. But when you start it cold, does it feel like the engine is running rough? Like there's roughness to the engine as it warms up, it gets better?
No, it's not really an engine row. It's just a rattling sound. That's what I can describe it. It sounds like a diesel. But then it was, like I said, probably within 5 to 5 seconds, it calms right out and everything runs fine after that.
Is that a V6 or a 4-cylinder?
6.
I'd be thinking a timing belt tensioner or a timing chain tensioner. Without seeing it, I just don't know.
And what he's describing is that the belts for the timing belt and for the the fan belt. I guess we could return, even though it's not a fan belt anymore. But there's a tensioner on there, and that may be rattling and making noise first thing in the morning.
And a lot of time they're oil pressure operated, and the car's starting up, and it's got to build up pressure for a second. It's been sitting overnight, and it bleeds down.
It's time for Fact or Fiction. Man, I've gotten that right 2 weeks in a row. We are on a roll. So the fact or fiction for today is, I figured you guys are both ASC certified technicians. You might have an answer. Fact or fiction for today, my tires are 7 years old. I should replace them no matter what. Glenn, what do you think?
Well, the popular...
fact or fiction?
I would say that is a fact.
That is a fact. How about you, Joel?
I would go with the fact also.
You would go with the fact also? And then go ahead, Glenn, what were you saying?
Well, there's kind of it depends on that. I have to tie into the end of that. But especially here in our hot desert climate, they recommend even as little as 5 years. You start to see heat cracks in the tires and signs that there may be some ply separating going on because of the extreme heat on our pavement, because a lot of it is asphalt. And so 7 years, even the tire manufacturers will say, yes, regardless of the mileage on the tires, that those tires should be replaced, not because they can increase their sales, but factually the tires composite and the way that they are put together will start to disintegrate, and you could end up with some ply separations or some problems with the tires. Well,
I'm definitely going to agree with both of you. When I used to sell tires and was in the tire business, we said tire was only good for 5 years, and it was almost a shelf life of 5 years, and there literally is a date on the tire on the DOT or Department of Transportation number. Usually if the guy installed it, they can either face the dot number in or out. So if they put it out, you can look at the last 4 digits of the tire, and the first 2 digits is the number of the week, and the last 2 digits is the number of the year. So if it was 2412, it would be the 24th week of 2012. Anyway, up first this segment, let's go with Elaine in Glendale on a 1990 Olds 98. Go ahead, Elaine, you're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie. Okay. My daughter bought it for me in California and drove over here, and her son went over it thoroughly, replaced serpentine belt, did all that sort of stuff, and the car is perfect. And I have every bit of paperwork from the day it was bought new. She bought it for the original owner. The car has a slight vibration. When you get to about 52 miles an hour, you can feel the vibration. But she's replaced all the tires with brand new ones. She had them all checked and double-checked because the vibration didn't go away. By the way, the tires on it were 10 years old. So, and the car only has 132,000 miles on it. And my son checked it, and he really knows what he's doing. He said there's nothing wrong with the wheel bearings, and the motor sits there absolutely perfectly still. There's no vibration. I was thinking maybe motor mount was bad or something. But we can't think of anything else.
I'm still a little bit tied to your tires, Elaine, and Glenn, he's got his hand up here, so maybe he's got something else to say. But a vibration at 52 miles an hour, I would bet that if you went through 52 miles an hour, you wouldn't feel it. And if you were at 49 miles an hour, are you feeling it?
No, I don't notice it until I get to just right about 62, and then when I take the speed up a little more, I don't notice it as much, but it's still there.
Okay. Go ahead, Glenn.
Well, there are some theories that there could be a problem in your drive line. You may have a problem with your drive shaft. Do you see your rear view mirror vibrating at all when that starts to occur? Do you feel it in your seat while you're sitting?
No, I feel it in the steering wheel.
You feel it in the steering wheel. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes wheel bearings, when you check them when they're in the air, you don't feel anything. But when you put the weight of the vehicle on them, that changes the dynamic. And there still could be a problem there as well.
Yeah, my son was a little bit suspicious of wheel bearings because I've always been a Buick owner, and we noticed there seemed to be a tendency for the right side front wheel bearing to go bad, or the half axle. It seemed to be a problem that recurred even with other people that we know that had Buicks. So he was real suspicious of that to start with. But the vibration is only a slight vibration. It's not anything that scares me or anything. But put it this way, I don't drive it like a little old lady. That car will go. It'll just absolutely goes like a scared bunny rabbit. It's really in beautiful shape.
I was just wondering, does that car have those big spoke hubcaps on it?
Yeah, it's got the fancy ones.
Because I've seen where I remember those cars, and they had those big hubcaps that looked like spoke wheels, and I've seen those could throw your balance off, but you could balance a tire 20 times, but you just put that big hubcap on there.
and the hubcap's not balanced like the wheel is balanced. So thanks for the call, Elaine. You can always follow us up at bumpertobumperradio.com. There's a contact link. We get an email, comes right into Mattermind's email address, and we can maybe give you some more directions. So thanks for the call. Let's go with Adam in Mesa on a 2004 Ford Expedition. Go ahead, Adam. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys taking my call. So 2004 Ford Expedition has about 100,000 miles on it. I just had the transmission rebuilt. But when I'm on the freeway going about 60 to 65 miles an hour, and I just barely tap the gas just enough to maintain the speed, I still hear like a whining noise. And I've tried taking it to a couple of different shops, and nobody seems to know what it is. Some people say it's a differential. Some say it's a transfer case. When I had the transmission rebuilt, the shop looked at the transfer case and said it was clean and looked good to them, but just kind of curious about that whining noise.
Is the whining noise, did it seem to be consistent with the engine speed or the wheel speed? You know, in other words, does the intensity of it go up the faster you go?
No, it literally is only if I'm right going between 60 and 65 and just kind of idling and kind of just barely tapping the gas. If I let off the gas, the sound goes away. If I hit the gas real hard, the sound goes away. And if I hit like 75 or 80 miles an hour, the sound also goes away. So I don't know if it's just something to, I don't know. That's why I'm calling you guys.
I'm not thinking transmission noise. That doesn't come to my head. And I'm honestly not thinking transfer case noise either. So
I'm thinking differential from what you're saying, because does it happen at lower speeds too? If you're doing 40, kind of coast, and then just touch the pedal, does the noise come back?
Yeah. If I'm going, I mainly notice it when I'm on the freeway, but if I'm on surface streets going, 40, 45, you'll hear it a little bit as well.
Yeah, I think Joel's on the right track, that we've got some sort of differential bearings going bad. And typically with differential noises, they will change whether you're on the load side of the gear or on the coast side of the gear. So that's real typical. If you think you've got a differential noise, you give it a little gas, the noise changes, you let on and off the gas. So good call. So what do you guys think? You guys worried about airbags going off in your car?
After seeing that video, I'm terribly concerned because it looked like a grenade blowing off in some Chinese fireworks on the 4th of July. Pieces flying, and thankfully they did the demonstration with a crash dummy, because I wouldn't want to have been behind the wheel.
Man, that did not look good at all. But that leads me to a problem, and this is why these cars get totaled out so easily, is that maybe the car is a $25,000 car new. It's 5 years old, 7 years old. Now you not only have an airbag in the steering wheel, you got an airbag in the passenger seat, you've got side curtain airbags. So when you get in a major wreck, you've got airbags all over the car, and these things are expensive. So that's why vehicles get totaled out a lot easier than they used to be, just because of the expense of the airbags. So I can see where the pressure would come from insurance companies to get the price of airbags down.
Well, we've seen this not only in the airbag market, but also many of the aftermarket parts. We had a case where someone had a radiator that was bad in a Lexus, and the insurance company insisted they could provide a radiator for a much lower price. 2 months later, that radiator blew up, and we ended up putting in a real radiator. So, yeah, it is. It's the approach of economics for the insurance companies, and they really are twisting the arm of automotive shops, particularly body shops, to use sub-adequate parts in those vehicles.
Well, and that's our point, is that people don't know this, but when you call your insurance company, they are going to direct you into what they call their approved insurance or body shop. That's not the shop that you have to go to. You can go really anywhere. Bumpertobumperradio.com. We've got 2 great body shops. We've got I-17 Collision on the west side, and then in Scottsdale we've got First Class Auto Body. Well, thanks, Glenn, for coming in. Thanks, Joel. You can visit their shops. Glenn is at Price and Broadway and Price, and Joel is right here in North Tempe. We'll hope to be back with you next week. Bumper to Bumper Radio.